We are honored to have Dr. John Ryan from Southern Cross University, Australia. A very good morning, Dr. Ryan. Ladies and gentlemen, now before we begin, we would like to have a welcoming speech from our rector, and please our rector to officially open this webinar. For Professor Dr. Fatur Rahman M. Hum, the Zoom is yours.
Okay, thank you, Intan. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah wa syukurillah la haula wala quwata illa billah. Allahumma shalli ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali sayyidina Muhammad. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The Honorable Associate Professor Dr. Zainul Akmar Zakaria, University Teknologi Malaysia, Dr. John Ryan, Southern Cross University, Australia, the head of Research Institution of UNES, Dean of UNES, all of participants for the collaboration of UNES Institute. I would like to express Alhamdulillah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His blessing and mercy that we could assemble in this good seminar that conducted by LP2M UNES. I would like to introduce, especially for the speaker, about the vision of UNES. UNES is to be a conservation university to get the reputation in the international. And we have the spirit, the host of science or the host of knowledge. And I wanted to give the speech in Bahasa Indonesia to give the motivation, especially to UNES lectures. Tantangan perguruan tinggi di Indonesia meliputi 4 tantangan besar. Yang pertama adalah revolusi industri 4.0 dan society 5.0. Tantangan ini belum selesai untuk dilakukan upaya-upaya inovasi oleh perguruan tinggi seluruh dunia. Bahkan ada perguruan tinggi yang tergerus untuk kemudian di-merger dengan perguruan tinggi lain. Ada banyak perguruan tinggi juga yang kehilangan mahasiswanya karena tidak mampu untuk menyesuaikan diri dengan revolusi industri 4.0 dan society. Revolusi industri 4.0 menuntut literasi baru seperti big data, literasi digital, dan juga yang literasi teknologi. Yang menarik juga adalah bahwa revolusi industri itu memberikan kesadaran bahwa revolusi industri memberikan kesadaran kepada kemanusiaan bahwa teknologi, data, is the tools adalah hanya sebagai alat untuk mengembangkan society, mengembangkan kemanusiaan. Karena itu lahirlah Society 5.0 yang menyempurnakan bahwa pengembangan teknologi, pengembangan literasi digital, dan berbagai upaya di dalam mengembangkan revolusi industri harus ditambahkan kepada kemanusiaan atau society. Karena itu kemudian diperkuat literasi kemanusiaan di dalam upaya-upaya untuk bisa secara masif mengatasi tantangan revolusi industri ini. Di UNES dikembangkan untuk menyambut revolusi industri dengan berbagai pengembangan inovasi seperti digital smart kampus, kemudian pengembangan kurikulum, dan berbagai inovasi yang lain yang dilakukan oleh dosen, oleh mahasiswa. Tantangan ini belum selesai, kemudian tantangan baru muncul sejak tahun 2019, yaitu COVID-19. Yang ternyata COVID-19 justru meneguhkan bahwa digital atau revolusi industri adalah bagian dari upaya untuk memulai kita bisa melawan COVID-19. Dan berbagai upaya juga di dalam berbagai inovasi untuk mengembangkan tantangan ini sudah dilakukan oleh berbagai perguruan tinggi. Memang di dalam mengatasi COVID, kita bisa untuk memberikan motivasi untuk melawan COVID agar kita menjaga sehat. Kemudian kita juga melakukan berbagai inovasi di dalam penyediaan masker dan juga di dalam pengembangan kurikulum untuk kita tetap produktif di dalam melawan COVID. Kita belum mampu UNES untuk menciptakan alat ukur seperti UGM dengan Genos atau juga dengan inovasi-inovasi lain, atau bahkan kita menemukan formulasi baru untuk vaksinasi. Tetapi kita menyiapkan vaksinasi untuk mahasiswa. Kita menyadari di dalam COVID ini kita tidak mampu melakukan inovasi yang bereputasi nasional maupun dunia. Karena itu kita perkuat masyarakat UNES dengan kita kebersamaan melawan COVID, dan kita juga mengembangkan social responsibility, bahwa UNES memiliki peran di dalam melawan COVID. Tantangan yang perguruan tinggi yang ketiga adalah kebijakan pemerintah, MPKM. Dan ini sudah disambut oleh seluruh perguruan tinggi, masuk UNES, dengan UNES menjadi kampus merdeka. Dan kita sudah mengembangkan kurikulum MPKM, serta juga satu-satunya perguruan tinggi yang sudah memiliki sistem di dalam penerapan MPKM dalam Tridharma perguruan tinggi di UNES. Tantangan yang keempat adalah perlunya standar mutu dengan standar yang tinggi melalui standar teknologi. Karena itu ketika barangkali Ketua LP2M memiliki inovasi hebat, tetapi kemudian HP-nya jadul, itu tentu tidak akan bisa memberikan sebuah kepercayaan. Ketika kemudian kita berkolaborasi, kemudian kita ditanya alamat emailnya di mana, dan alamat email kita tidak bisa diakses, kita dikasih email juga tidak bisa membuka, dan kemudian banyak sekali teknologi-teknologi sistem-sistem yang tersedia, kita tidak mampu untuk mengakses itu, maka standar kita akan menjadi rendah. Yang menarik adalah, meskipun teknologi itu tinggi, tapi di era ini, dengan adanya tantangan revolusi industri, dengan adanya COVID, maka sentuhan akan sangat berarti. Saya merasakan betul teman-teman yang terpapar COVID, ya, dosen atau didik, kemudian saya telepon, mereka begitu bahagia. Walaupun tidak bisa bertemu, kita harus bisa menyapa dengan sapaan-sapaan yang penuh dengan rasa cinta dan kasih sayang. Apalagi kalau bertemu. Kepada mahasiswa kita juga kita harus bisa melakukan sentuhan-sentuhan yang tinggi, high touch. Dan yang penting juga adalah juga di dalam tantangan perguruan tinggi itu, setiap perguruan tinggi harus bisa membangun namanya high trust. Trust yang tinggi. LP2M ini mengadakan sebuah kegiatan, dan tadi Bu Ratna menyampaikan bahwa yang hadir bukan hanya dari UNES, tapi dari perguruan tinggi lain. Ini artinya bahwa LP2M sudah memiliki high trust di kalangan perguruan tinggi yang lain untuk menyelenggarakan acara ini. Karena itu, mari kita bangun. Dan yang menjadi tantangan UNES adalah bukan hanya lembaganya yang dipercaya, karena banyak pendaftar untuk masuk ke UNES, dan kita termasuk ranking 3 besar untuk SNPTN, kemudian 3 besar untuk SBMPTN, dan kita juga banyak pesaing yang penerimaan mahasiswa di seleksi mandiri juga kita tinggi pendaftarnya. Dan sekarang yang perlu kita kembangkan adalah high trust untuk Bapak Ibu dosen. Kita sedang mengembangkan Bapak Ibu dosen terpercaya sebagai dosen. Bapak Ibu profesor terpercaya sebagai profesor. Karena belum tentu juga seorang profesor tetangganya percaya bahwa dia profesor. Dia seorang profesor ketika di grup WA belum terpercaya sebagai profesor. Karena yang diunggah adalah bukan unggahan yang membuat orang percaya bahwa ia profesor. Dan karena itu butuh reputasi. Karena itu butuh publikasi. Ya, publish or perish. Ilmuwan adalah dua pilihan. Mau publikasi atau mau mati. Kalau tidak publikasi, maka dia tidak akan bisa eksis. Dan orang tidak percaya bahwa dia adalah ilmuwan. Ini tantangan bagi UNES. Karena itu saya mengapresiasi 2M acara yang sederhana, tapi sangatlah penting. How to write a book chapter, and get it published. Saya sudah memulainya, menulis sebuah buku. Di setiap ulang tahun saya, insya Allah akan saya terbitkan. Dan ini menulis tentang ujaran kebencian. Kemudian saya juga bersama-sama mahasiswa ya menulis. Satu mahasiswa yang kuliah bersama saya ajak untuk menulis. Ya, kemudian diikuti juga oleh ada Bu Ida, ada Pak Tommy, mengikuti juga. This is the book chapter. Inilah book chapter. Satu mahasiswa menulis. Dan ini dipublish ya dari publikasi LP2M. Luar biasa juga ya. Ini juga ada contoh ya bahasa sastra saya mendapatkan ini dari murid-muridnya Ibu Ida namanya. Ya, sudah terbiasa. Dan ini harus menjadi budaya baru yang kita kembangkan agar bisa UNES bereputasi dunia. UNES akan bereputasi dunia jika masing-masing dosen harus memiliki kesadaran untuk mempublikasikan visi UNES. Karena ini menjadi bagian yang penting, karena itu saya mengapresiasi kegiatan ini. Apresiasi pertama bahwa kegiatan ini sangat relevan dengan visi UNES. Visi konservasi harus direputasikan. Dan salah satu cara mereputasikan adalah dengan karya yang dipublikasikan. Kemudian ini juga menjadi bagian penting untuk publikasi dan reputasi perguruan tinggi. Perguruan tinggi itu bersaing, harus memiliki the global competitiveness. The key of the global competitiveness is the publish. Publish or perish. Mau publikasi atau mati. Kita tidak akan menjadi terkenal. Saat kita terkenal, maka rezeki akan berdatangan. Tukul Arwana itu bisa membuka perusahaan. Bisa juga membuka warung bakso. Semua yang dibuka oleh Tukul itu menjadi sangat laris. Padahal Tukul dengan saya lebih ganteng saya. Tetapi dia lebih terkenal. Karena apa? Publikasi itu teramat mahal. Ada lagi yang sekarang terkenal, itu orangnya gundul, memang badannya besar. Ya, agak kemakai sedikit itu. Deddy Kobuser apa itu ya. Itu juga sangat terkenal. Saya lihat penghasilannya dari YouTube. 1 bulan 1 miliar. Mengapa? Karena publikasi. Karena itu kemudian orang ingin menjadi the influencer. Ingin menjadi orang yang memberikan pengaruh. Dia bisa berpengaruh kalau dia sudah mampu publish. Nah, yang penting juga adalah kesadaran diseminasi keilmuan. Ini penting. Ilmu itu harus dihilirkan agar sampai kepada masyarakat dan masyarakat memanfaatkannya dari ilmu yang kita kembangkan. Dan hilirisasi keilmuan hanya bisa dilakukan dengan riset, kemudian publikasi. Publikasi itu adalah jarak terdekat antara riset. Masih jauh jarak nanti untuk bisa kebermanfaatan ke masyarakat. Harus melalui yaitu pasar, harus melalui pasar. Seleksi pasar itu sangat penting. The market is the key, menjadi kunci. Pasar itu menentukan apakah keilmuan kita mampu untuk terdiseminasikan dengan baik. Pasar kita ada the stakeholders, adalah mahasiswa, ada dosen dan ilmuwan lain. Karena itu kegiatan ini saya juga berharap bisa mengembangkan kepakaran dari dosen-dosen UNES, dan itu adalah menjadi bagian SDM unggul untuk Indonesia maju. Selamat KLP2M yang luar biasa mengadakan acara ini. Saya dirayu oleh Pak LP2M untuk membuka acara ini. Karena itu tadi saya tergopoh-gopoh sedang melakukan sebuah kompetisi luar biasa, dan juga dari rumah selalu mengingatkan gitu. Kalau LP2M mengajak Ketua Dharma Wita sejak subuh sudah diingatkan harus membuka ya. Karena itu tadi saya tenis kalah Pak Wito karena nggak fokus. Karena nggak fokus ya. Ya, tapi tidak apa-apa ini, tidak apa-apa. Ya sebagai penutup ya, saya sampaikan quote. Kita mungkin merasa kesulitan mengubah situasi yang terjadi saat ini. Namun kita pasti mampu mengubah setidaknya satu orang penting di dunia ini, yakni diri kita sendiri. Segera bangkitkan energi motivasinya untuk hidup lebih baik dan lebih bermanfaat. Barangkali rektor bisa putus asa ketika mengajak 1.250 dosen untuk menulis buku. Tetapi ketika saya bercermin, maka yang harus menulis buku adalah Fatur Rahman sendiri. Dan mudah-mudahan saya bisa memberikan contoh pada dosen lain. Terima kasih, dan mudah-mudahan kegiatan ini bisa membawa berkah bagi kita semuanya. Dan atas permintaan Pak Wito, ya, maka acara ini saya buka secara resmi dengan membaca Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Acara pelatihan how to write a book or book chapter and get it published that conduct from the LP2M is officially open. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih sekali lagi Prof. Fatur sudah berkenan membuka acara pada pagi hari ini dan juga memberikan motivasi. Saya juga ingat ini Prof. Fatur dulu waktu ulang tahun pernah bilang seperti ini. Kalau ulang tahun dihadiahin itu sudah biasa ya Prof ya, tapi menghadiahi diri sendiri dengan sebuah karya itu yang luar biasa. Betul. Semoga bisa menjadi contoh untuk Bapak Ibu semuanya supaya kita untuk bersemangat lagi untuk membuat book chapter. Baik Bapak Ibu hadirin yang berbahagia, kali ini saya ingin Bapak Ibu semua untuk open your camera. Boleh please open your camera. We are going to have a photo session together before we begin all the panel session. Ladies and gentlemen, please open the camera. I will count it from 3. Okay? 3, 2, 1. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Terima kasih sekali lagi Bapak Rektor. Baik, ladies and gentlemen, now we are going to have the panel session, and we have our moderator here. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce the moderator for this session. We have Mr. Arif Widiatmoko, SPD, MPD, PhD in Education, and I will introduce a little bit about him. He got his doctor program in the field of educational development at Hiroshima University, Japan, and he is now active as a lecturer in Science Education Study Program, Integrated Science Department, Fakultas MIPA, Universitas Negeri Semarang, and now he is doing a research and also community service. The topic of his research are computer simulation, conceptual understanding, misconceptions, learning media, assessment, and ICT in education. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, let's move on to panel session, and please welcome our moderator, Mr. Arif.
Yes, thank you very much, MC Mbak Intan. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. The Honorable Director of Universitas Negeri Semarang, Profesor Dr. Fatur Rahman M.Hum, the Honorable the Head of Research and Community Service Institute, Dr. Suwito Eko Pramono, the Honorable Invited Guests, Director of Postgraduate Program, Head of Institution, the Dean, Head of Department, Head of Study Program in Universitas Negeri Semarang, and distinguished participants from overseas countries and provinces in Indonesia. First of all, I would like to welcome you to this webinar on Zoom about how to write a book or book chapter and get it published by a reputable international publisher. My name is Arif Hidayat Moko, and it is an honor for me to be a moderator for this speaker session. We all understand that the lecturer profession certainly has a lot of activities. Besides teaching, lecturer also runs three dharma of other higher education, and one of them is being active in writing. For instance, textbook, book or book chapters, journal, or other scientific works. And today, our speakers will be sharing with us their expert about how to write a book or book chapter and get published by a reputable international journal. Hopefully, you will find the next 2 hours useful. In this session, we have two presentation or speech from our two speakers. The first speaker is Associate Professor Dr. Zainul Akmar Zakaria from Faculty of Engineering, University Technology, Malaysia. Good morning, Dr. Zainul Akmar. Selamat pagi.
Selamat pagi.
Okay, and then after that we continue to the second speaker, Dr. John Ryan from Southern Cross University, Australia. Good morning, Dr. John Charles Ryan. Selamat pagi.
Good morning. Selamat pagi.
Okay, and then the time allocated for each presentation will be around 30 minutes. And finally, we continue to Q&A session. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor to have Associate Professor Dr. Zainul Akmar Zakaria together here with us this morning as a first speaker. Thank you for joining us in this webinar. We are very pleased to have you here. And Associate Professor Dr. Zainul Akmar Zakaria will be delivering presentation entitled How to Write a Book or Book Chapter and Get It Published by a Reputable International Publisher for Science and Technology areas for about 30 minutes. And before we begin, allow me to briefly introduce our first speaker, Dr. Zainul Akmar Zakaria, by reading his curriculum vitae. Dr. Zainul Akmar Zakaria is an Associate Professor of Environmental Biotechnology under the School of Chemical and Energy Engineering, Faculty of Engineering, University Technology Malaysia, or UTM. He currently holds the position of Associate Chair at a school as well as heading the UTM Bactech Research Group, where he works on biomass valorization and microbial technology. He has Scopus H index of 19, citation of around 1,200, and has published 2 research books, 8 edited books, and 16 book chapters. And one of his research book was awarded the National Book Award 2018 under the biochemistry category. At present, he has graduated 4 PhD students as main supervisor. And he is lead various national research projects with cumulative amount of around Ringgit Malaysia 1.5 million, as well as involved as lead researchers in other projects with cumulative amount of Ringgit Malaysia 3.7 million. And Dr. Zainul has acted as consultant for LGS Environment Australia, guest editor for special issue in 3 ISI Index Journal, evaluator for International Research Grant, Australia, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, American Chemical Society, or ICS, visiting scientist to Argentina, Mexico, as well as program head of the UTM CONICET Argentine and R&D program from 2015 until 2018. Okay, now ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our first speaker, Dr. Akmar Zainul Zakaria. The time is yours.
Yes. Nanti saya kecilkan dulu. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And good morning dan selamat pagi ya. Salam dari Johor Bahru. My name is Zainul. I'm from University Technology Malaysia, School of Chemical and Energy Engineering, Faculty of Engineering. So saya sangat senang bertemu dengan semua. The title of my presentation today is actually tilted a little bit.
to be publishing academic book. I'm going to focus on edited book. This is from the perspective of book editor. Yeah. And for those of you who have not been to UTM, just to show some of the buildings, scenery surrounding UTM. Yeah, this is in UTM Johor Bahru where we are. We have 3 campuses: Johor Bahru, KL, and also in UTM Pago. All right. So, so why do we publish? Of course, there's a lot of reasons for us to publish, and besides own motivation, as well, we do also need to chart our career and also to disseminate our findings, our knowledge that we generated in our laboratory and also with our students, as emphasized by Professor Fatur just now, Professor Fatur Rahman just now, the importance of disseminating our research findings to the general public. Yeah, so that's why one of the motivations that why we have to publish, right? So there are a lot of types of scholarly publications available. The most obvious one is definitely research journals. We also have conference proceedings. We have chapter-in book, original book, edited book, patent. Yeah, this is a form of your intellectual property where you can make can use it to make offer services to others where you can get some fees from it. And also, all of us, I think, here have published a thesis in one way or another in our career, and also research reports. This is especially if you are involved in projects with the local authorities, government. At the end of the day, you need to publish some kind of reports. So for the purpose of this session today, I'm going to share, because the original title was how to publish a book. Yeah. So I'm going to share some of the step by step, if I can say it. But this is some disclaimer from me. This is actually purely from my personal experience working with getting some books to be published by one or two international publishers. Yeah, this is by no means how you should do it. This is just by my own personal experience only. Yeah. So the first one, maybe you can determine the types of academic book that you want to publish. Okay. So from previous slide, you know that you can publish either research book, you can publish edited book, or textbook. Monograph, how do you define a monograph? Monograph is that the one who are less than 50 pages. Okay, if it's 49 pages, it cannot be called a book. It will be classified as monograph. Normally, this is a very concise collection or reporting that something that you need to get it fast to the public. Yeah. So for this purpose, I'm going to share about edited book. So basically, you can classify it into 4 basic phases, if I can call it. Yeah. I just actually make this slide 2 or 3 days ago. So, and this is the new slide actually. So this is what came up from me. So I just put it as initial planning, number 1. Number 2 is before publication. Number 3, during publication. And number 4, after publication. Why? Because at the end of the day, I would like that all of us later would be able to have or to be the editor, either the co-editor or the lead editor for an edited book, so that we can also contribute back to the society, yeah, based on the knowledge that we generate in our, either from teaching or from our research. All right. So if I can just put it like when you're in a race, initial planning is when you set your goal, you plan what you're going to do with this. This is just a cover photo. All right. So initial planning, I would like to suggest to include 4 of these main activities. Number 1, here is the stage where you identify your area of the book, the theme of your book, as well as the title of the book. Why this is important? Because this will form the basis for the contents of each chapters of your book later. Yeah, since you are doing an edited book, definitely you will work in a team as an editor, so that there's no way that you're going to work as a sole editor. Yeah, you can, yes, if your a number of chapters is not much, but if you are working with 20 or plus chapters, definitely you need your co-editor. So this is the stage that you also need to identify your co-editors. And also, once you have pooled your co-editors together, then you can start to discuss, to draft the content of your book and identify potential corresponding authors, which is very, very important in this stage. Okay, so the last stage in this one is after you get some feed from the corresponding authors, to get their feed, whether they are willing to contribute or not, then you confirm the list. Okay, because at this stage, the target is to assemble your team of authors, okay, including your co-editors, right? So maybe some that you can do is, for example, number one, how to identify the area. Okay, let's say you are going to one particular publisher. Okay, you go to the book section, go to the publishing or book publishing, you click on this subject matter area, and the whole area of scientific area that you can choose from, you can proceed from there. And always remember that it is best to publish within your area of expertise. So only you know you fall within which area. And then, for example, I'm giving here, after you choose your area, you focus on, let's say, for example, environmental sciences. You click on the environmental sciences, it will be given a lot of themes that you can choose from. All right. Then from there, you click either one, then you can choose types of title already published. This is very important because when you submit your book proposal later, the editor, the section editor from the editorial house would want to know how your book is different from the one who are already being published. Yeah, because this will determine, number one, the sellability of your books later. All right. So this is basically your task as the lead editor. Okay. Then basically this is what a lead editor would do. Make a list of potential contributors. Okay, in consultation with the rest of the editors, you invite the author to submit and make sure that submission is done on time. Okay, this is actually what has been shared by my colleague last time. Yeah, the word is chase, yeah, playing authors for submission and so forth. Okay, and this is some of the role of co-editors, a written role, but basically, since you're working in a team, make sure that the team you're working is the one that you are familiar with, you are comfortable to work with. Yeah, so co-editor would act as the very important editor when you publish a book, all right, an edited book, because he or she would have his or her own connections, authors that he or she can trust to deliver the books, all right, because the key here is when you get the award letter from the publisher, it's all about meeting the stipulated time. You must ensure that everything working smoothly. As a lead editor, you have to be able to oversee that everything works smoothly so that you can deliver on time. Yeah, we are still under number one, initial planning. All right, so how do you get your co-editors? Yeah, so I would like to suggest here, potential source of co-editors, yeah, is amongst your senior colleagues. So either you meet them during an academic events, like this photo where I met Dr. Ratna herself when she was in UTM, or you have friend comes visiting. This is Professor Raj Bhupatil from US. He's a Fulbright senior specialist. He was in UTM visiting us. Or friends you met in conference. This is the one that we have in India last time. All these are potential co-editors that you can work with. Remember, to be an editor or co-editor, it is better or best to have a senior colleagues as the co-editor, right? So after that, what you do, now you know your theme, you know your area, you have your title, you have your co-editor. You sit down together after that. Okay, sit down to do what? To draft the book content. It's just like writing a review paper. It's just like writing an article. It's just that now, let's say you already have the title. If you look at one examples given here, yeah. So the title can be the contents can be sections followed by subsections. Subsections are chapters. All right. So the section is where you can pull all these chapters under you, so that you can have a very organized book later. All right. So I'm sure all of us are very well versed on this. Yeah. So it can be, let's say if you look at this green book, biofuels and bioenergy, so you can have a section starting from a very brief overview of what biofuels are. It's all about up until its manufacturing, its application, and its future perspectives. It can be that kind of flow. Yeah. Okay, and who can contribute? Who is our target corresponding authors? Who would contribute to our chapters later. Now you already have the title, you must identify who would be your authors. Yeah. So definitely you can make use of the context number one just now, and also you can make use of the context that you make in social media. For example, we have the social media such as FB, Telegram, and also Instagram. We have also the academic social media such as ResearchGate. Yeah, this is actually a very useful avenue for you to get potential corresponding authors that will be responsible to provide you with the chapters later. All right. Yeah, after that, hold on, yeah, how do I make the button up there, because I cannot see all. Okay. After that, you identify the author, you send email to them, invitation email. Just say that, do I have an example for it? No, I don't have. Just send an email to them saying that you're going to start a book project. You have 20 chapters and you have been identified as one of the authors for this particular title. Would you like to contribute? The answer is just, at this stage, it's only yes or no. And if yes, please provide your title. Okay. And also if yes, you also might want to ask from them the abstract at this stage also. Okay. So it is always good to have your own, I cannot see the whole of my slide because, you have your own checklist. All right, these are the suggestions or what you can have as checklist later. Yeah. So 1, 2, 3 is your role as lead editor. Number 4, when you start to plan, this is where you need your co-editors. Okay. Number 5, you identify corresponding author. You also need your peer editors. Sometimes your co-editors also has his own colleagues to as a potential corresponding author. This is very important for you. It makes your life easier. All right. So you send invitation email, as well as number 7, compile list confirm corresponding author. All right. That's number 1, initial planning, takes care of initial planning. After that, what do you do for? This is what I can categorize as before publication stage. All right. This is where if you are running in a race where you're waiting for the starter, okay? Starter to blast his gun, all right, before you can run the race, all right? Why? Because at this stage, your target would be at the end of this stage, you want to be awarded with a book publishing contract. So what constitute the activities here? Say number 1, after you remember you have all the list of authors and titles, you can start to initiate communication with the topic editor. Okay, this is in the publishing house. Number 2, you can complete the book proposal form. Okay, number 3, finalize list of chapters from the authors. Why? Because in between your communication with topic editor, it is not very difficult to find. Some of the authors would send you an email. I'm sorry, but I have to withdraw from submitting a paper. It's my chapters because such and such. Okay, that's why this is the stage where you need to find a list of chapters, because this is the stage where you're going to submit your book proposal to the topic editor at the publishing house. All right, so number 4, it is always sometimes required for you to prepare 1 sample chapter. So how to prepare sample chapter? The easiest way is look at 1 sample chapter which has been published by the publisher, for you to get the feel on the formatting, the content, and such, and the reference style. Yeah. So at this stage, for me, the target is to be awarded with a book publishing contract. Have to have this as a target. Okay. All right. So remember the theme, title, the theme, so the title. We're also gonna find at the publishing house webpage the book section with the books editor. So you choose the section editor as listed in the contact us tab. Normally, it is always at contact us. Okay, you draft your email and start communicating. Okay, and either after communicating with them, he or she will provide you with a book proposal form, or you can download the form yourself from the web page itself. Yeah. So what to do with this? Or to publish a book, either you can contact the series editor, oops. Or you can book session contact the book series editor. Okay, because normally there are different kinds of book published. Either it's a standalone book, or it falls under a series, aptly themed series, which has been determined by the publisher, which has its own editor, where you can contact them directly. Okay, so here, for example, the person is termed as responsible editor. So much so that you're going to be easier for you if you happen to know the responsible editor of something, you have met him in some conference or something, you have changed emails, yeah, you can make your life very much easier after that to publish a book. Then you start to complete the book proposal template. Yeah, it depends on the publisher. So the requirements might be different. Yeah, for I'm just showing two here. One is Elsevier from Netherlands. One is Germany-based Springer. For Elsevier, normally it would require abstract only. For each chapter, it would require list of corresponding authors and then abstract, full abstract, including of table of contents for the abstract, right? Then for Springer, if I'm not mistaken, it's listed here. Yeah, it wants sample chapter, okay, or chapter outline. Chapter outline means you can do it in the form of bullets from table of contents, bulleted forms. Yeah, so depends on the requirements of the publishing house. I'm not going to show every page here because normally it will not go more than 10 pages. So don't worry. All answerable. You can answer all the information required. Yeah, don't worry. So what you need is a little bit of discussion with your co-editors, yeah, on how to proceed with the book, and you should be okay. Okay. So with this book proposal template, okay. Oh, I'm showing the content here. All right, authors. These are all doable. Here you can propose title. Okay, when you're gonna expect to submit the manuscript. Okay. Like I mentioned, these are all like your idea of what the book's going to be, how your book going to be. All right, all are answerable. Don't worry. Okay, annotated table. You need to have this. Why you need table of content for each chapter? Because you would need it to provide number 9, annotated table of contents. Okay, some publisher require this. Okay, so if they ask, you should contact your corresponding author and ask from them this kind of. Right. Then let's look at number 12, unique selling points. Okay, why they need to publish your book? Okay, why they need to take the trouble in getting their team ready, yeah, to check your book proposal later, the final one, the structures, the grammar, the referencings, and everything. You must give the good stuff in number 12 and why you should publish. All right. And you can also suggest some potential reviewers. Okay. Okay. And also they would need your CV. Okay. So CV depends if they want a full CV, give a full CV. If not, just give a 1-page CV would suffice. Okay. This is one example of a book that we published last time. Then, as mentioned, this is under the before publication stage. You need to finalize the list of chapters now. If you look here, like I mentioned just now, some of your colleagues will send you an email late. Normally, it's late at night. Okay, Zainal, sorry, due to I have to teach 10 credits this semester. I'm supervising 5 PhD students, so I wouldn't have the time to contribute to a chapter. I'm sorry, but I have to withdraw. So this is the stage that you need to finalize the list of chapters here. All right, because you would send this together with your book proposal form to the publisher. Okay, if the abstract is required, you can put it in one file after the list of corresponding author. You put it after your abstract template, because this is the one they're going to send to your author. Okay, you put it, you arrange it. Must be according to what your list here. Okay, so these are the one that is being provided by your corresponding author. Okay. So it's very doable. Okay, how to prepare your one chapter sample? As I mentioned just now, some publisher will require to see, actually they want to see the quality of the projected quality of your book later. So that's why they want to see whether you are ready. Are you well versed with the formatting? Are you well versed with how a scientific manuscript should be written? How the structure should be? Are you well versed with referencing style and stuff like that? So they want to see a chapter sample. So this is normally your job as a lead editor to provide one chapter sample to the publishing house. Okay. Say at the end of the day, you after I think around exchanging of 5 to 6 emails with the editor, the section editor, you would get something like this, a publishing agreement, where like in this case, the Elsevier one is the one that is a standalone book, and for the right hand one, this is under Springer, where it is going to be published under a book series. All right, this is the contract that you're gonna endorse. Okay, we're going to refer later if there are certain matters arising. Okay. Okay. So it is also always good to have your own checklist. So I'm going to suggest the checklist to be something like this. You are free to amend this list, to amend the content. It's up to you. Yeah. Deadline here. Why do I put week? Because in a matter of week, you can settle identification of section editor, send email in a matter of week. But when you work on the book proposal, don't put week. Always put months, because you are dealing with your colleagues. They need time. Okay, they need time to give you the information that you want, the chapters that you want, the abstract that you want. All right. So okay, I put here number 5. Your communication with section editor also gonna sometimes take some months, because some discussions going on. All right. So at the end of the day, hopefully we're gonna get this publishing agreement. So now you are full swing. After the starter, now you are full swing running. This is what I put as during publications. So what happens here? So this is where at the end of the day, your target will be to submit a complete book draft to the publisher within the stipulated deadline. A book draft means the final form, just for the publisher to check the content, whether it is meet the formatting requirement, whether it's have some copyright infringement and stuff like that. They also have their own editorial team to check all this. All right. So you as the lead editor, what you should do is to share the book chapter template to corresponding author. Then you please give some ample deadline for your corresponding author to prepare the chapter and submit back to you. Okay, then followed by the reviewing process. You are also responsible. You and your co-editors are responsible for the reviewing process. Okay, not you to review, but you have to send to somebody to review. Then you return the comments from the reviewers to the author. They make the amendments. You get the amended chapters. Then you compile the chapters and you have to proceed the formatting. Then you can submit to the section editor. So what are the some elaboration on this if I have? Yes, to submit the book chapter template, either you can use directly from the guideline for authors, which is available at the publisher's website. Okay, this is a normal one. Okay, sometimes it's going to be like long, 7 to 8 pages. You have lost track sometimes. So if you ask me, I would prefer the old school way. Try to look at the most recently published book chapter by the publisher, at the same publisher. You can always look at the formatting, the size of the fonts, how they do it. You can just follow the style. Okay. So for the authors, don't worry about this, about spacing. It will be done by your co-editors and also lead editor later. What you just need to make sure that we as the editor would have a good manuscript for us to proceed with formatting and final checking. And also chapter submitted by corresponding author, amended chapter, yeah. Okay, all right, example. Then when you get the chapter from your corresponding author, you send it for review. This is actually a form that you can do yourself. There's no specific types of format that you need to follow. It's just that you just have to make sure that at the end of the day, your form can be used by your reviewer for them to make their judgment, for elaboration. And also, if people ask, can I see your reviewing form? They can also say that the process of reviewing has been carried out thoroughly. Yeah. So this is an example of a reviewing form that you can share with your reviewers. And reviewers can come also from your colleagues. Yeah. So you can send this email to them, send the chapter, send this email to them, and ask them to review and return. 2 weeks, 3 weeks time. Okay. It is very much doable. Okay, the reviewing process. This is where the role of your guest editor, co-editor. COE is co-editor. Yeah, LE is you lead editor. COE is co-editor. Is very important. Where, like I said just before, if your co-editor also has invite, let's say 3 to 4 of his friends to contribute chapters in your book, he or she can also takes care of the reviewing process by handling or contacting their colleagues back. Okay, their other colleagues to review the papers. He or she will be responsible to review the paper, to oversee the reviewing process. So what happens? You don't have enough number of reviewer. Normally, you require two reviewers would suffice. Three would be better. Okay, let's say you only have one after 1 month. So most of the time, okay, you can do the reviewing yourself. Okay, you can review the quality of the book chapters yourself. All right, so no worries. Okay, this is what example of I cannot see the writing over there because it's there's the button. Okay, I think this is about amendments from corresponding author. Yeah. Okay, after you get the final form of chapters being reviewed and amended chapters by corresponding author, your job now as a lead editor is to compile all the chapters and to proceed with the formatting as requested by the publishers. So you can see down, if you already asked your corresponding author to format the chapters according to the publisher, now your job will be very, very much easier. Okay, you just need to compile, but the list of contributors is the one that you need to yourself. The table of contents, you need to do it yourself. Yeah. Then also good to have the similarity index. You can use Turnitin to check the similarity index for your chapters. Okay. If not, if you don't provide it now, the publishing house will, the publisher would request it later. Okay. The same thing. You better when you submit the book proposal, your book draft, you already have this with you. Okay. Now you're ready to submit, right? So, what then? Satisfactory. Can we be like this guy? Satisfaction stage, or you can be celebrating now like this great footballing team in the Great Britain, all right, who always winning cups. Or you can, if you are running the race just now, you can celebrate like Usain Bolt. Can you do it now? Let's see. The answer, not yet. Why? Because you still have the last leg of the race to run. Okay, even though you have submitted, remember you are submitting a book proposal to the publisher, it will be reviewed. Okay, it's just that I can say that 80% of your job is now completed. It's just that final. In this case, this is this is an Olympic season, yeah. So I'm just showing this slide which I got from internet yesterday. All right, the last 100 meters is where you are now. I put it as after publications. So here is you will receive comments from editorial office. Okay, so from this comment, you would use it, you share it again to corresponding author to make some final amendments. Yeah. So again, you have to compile all the amended chapters, send back to the editor office. Then here, the editor office will send the CTP, consent to publish, or the CTF, copyright transfer form to the corresponding author. Normally, you get the CC, or they will send it to you, and you should contact the corresponding author yourself for them to complete the CTP or CTF form. Again, CTP is consent to publish. CTF is copyright transfer form. Then you do number 4, you do number 5. Okay, number 5 is normally where you can celebrate now. Okay, you get an email of acceptance from editor office. Then number 6, you get the page proof to corresponding authors. This is now between publisher and corresponding authors. They will contact them yourself. You just now sit back and enjoy what is happening now. Number 7 is the final version of our book. Now it's now available. Yeah, because at this stage, your target is to get final version of your book published, either as online or printed version. Okay, some example of the comments from the publisher for the final draft of the book. Yeah, normally they will also want to clarify. This is a clarification stage only. All right. Then these are the example of the CTP form. Okay, and what you as a lead editor, this is the example of the CTP form sent to you as the editor, which you need to send to the corresponding author for each chapters. So you need to have a very good folio of all this. Then after that, the final details, you'll be assigned some handling editor from the publishing house who would now tell you that your book is now ready for publication process. You use a big line here, you just say yes, happy, all right? Then after that, finally, you can share the good news to all your corresponding authors. Okay, that our book that you have start the process quite some time ago, normally up to 6 to 9 months, is now available with such and such reference. You can with the citation style ready, ISBN ready, and this is where you thank them. Okay. So now finally you deserve your celebration. Yeah, and you can go for a good well-deserved break. This is all our not with this COVID-19, we cannot go for a holiday. Now you can leave the trophy, or you can do like this Muhammad Zohri, Indonesian, very much very sprinting king. Now I think he's the top 3 in Asia. Yeah, Muhammad Zohri is very, very, very quick. Looking forward to see him running in the Olympics. Okay. Okay, just to share some of the book titles which I've managed to publish with my colleagues all this while. Only 2 research books. This book, Bioabsorption by Reduction of Toxic Metals, is a research book. And also this one from Springer, also a research book. The rest are all edited books. Yeah. So the take-home points here, it is very doable. And it is more like a satisfaction to you as academics and researchers. Don't worry, waste time. So I'm just going to share some the motivation why we publish and why should you continue to publish books. Okay, along the way, alhamdulillah, you have the rizki, you get some reward from it, from your previous colleagues. And also for me, one of the motivations for me to publish all the books, either research book or edited book, is to have one of the books being utilized or being digested by readers such as this guy. This is actually one of the researchers from Bolivia who in my lab last time. His name is Dr. Richard Pujiro. He was in UTM in my lab. So yeah, this is one of the motivations actually to get your book, because if you publish a book, you'll be given a statement. You'll be contacted by the publisher yearly at the end of the year. They will give you a statement on how your book performed. how much has been downloaded online, because to download you need to pay to the publisher, or how much hard copy book have been sold. Yeah, so these are actually, because let's say the statement is 200 books, printed books, hard copy books, they managed to sell. Okay, so you know that this book will end up somewhere, either in the library or in somebody else's personal collection, which they're going to use later. Okay, back at what, like how Professor Fatur Rahman mentioned earlier, our job is to try to disseminate our knowledge that we generate in the lab, try to enrich the knowledge always, yeah? And one of the ways is to publish books. And my sincere acknowledgement to these people. These are my students, some of my students, some have graduated. This is when, in 2019, when myself and my students, those who are not in with UTM shirts, either my students, and this is my wife next to me. These are 4 UNES students who had the chance to come to UTM last time, and I'm very much thankful for the hospitality, and we were there. And also, of course, to my very important colleague, yeah, Dr. Ratna. Thank you very much for always supporting our collaboration, and her also to her colleagues. Yeah. With that, I think I would like to end my presentation and would pass the session back to the moderator, Mr. Arif. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Zainul Akmar Zakaria, for the very informative and interesting talk. And I would like to read the highlight from presentation of Dr. Zainul Akmar Zakaria. So if you want to publish a book or book chapter, this is important. We have to do for process, initial planning, and then before publication, during publication, and after publication. For the initial planning, we have to identify area, theme, and the title of the book. And then the second step is before publication, we need to initiate communication with the publisher, and then complete the book proposal form, and then finalize list of chapters and then corresponding authors, and prepare one of sample chapters. And then the third step is during publication, we need to share book chapters template to corresponding authors, and then set the deadline, and then reviewing process and compile of all chapters and formatting, finally submit to section editor or publisher. Yay! And in the presentation, you read yay, it means finished. But the last step is after publication, you need to respond to comment from editorial office to corresponding authors, and then compile all amended chapter, page proof to corresponding authors, and final version of the book is published, and then we will get reward and this key. This is the highlight from Dr. Zainul Akmar Zakaria presentation, and let's give a big applause for Dr. Zainul Akmar Zakaria. Okay, if you have question to Dr. Zainul Akmar Zakaria, you can write down your question in the text box column, or later in the Q&A section. You can ask directly to the speakers. And then let's move to the second speaker. I would like to introduce our second speaker. It is very great honor to have Dr. John Charles Ryan together here with us in this morning as a second speaker. Good morning, Dr. John Charles Ryan.
Good morning, Dr. Arif.
Selamat pagi.
Selamat pagi juga ya.
I read on your CV you can speak bahasa Indonesia.
Sedikit, Pak. Terima kasih.
Okay, this is interesting for us. And then we are very pleased to have you here. And Dr. John Ryan will be delivering presentation entitled How to Write a Book or Book Chapter and Get It Published by a Reputable International Publisher for Social Science and Humanity areas for about 30, no, he requested 45 minutes, okay. And then before we begin, allow me to briefly introduce our second speaker. His name is Dr. John Charles Ryan. And Dr. John Charles Ryan is a writer, eco-critic, and ethnographer. His current affiliation are as Adjunct Associate Professor at Southern Cross University and Adjunct Senior Research Fellow at the Nulungu Research Institute, Notre Dame University, Australia. And then he held position as postdoctoral research fellow in the School of Communication and Arts at Edith Cowan University from 2012 to 15, and postdoctoral research fellow in the School of Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences at the University of New England, Australia from 2017 to 2020. And he also served as honorary research fellow at the University of Western Australia from 2015 to 2020. His work comprises 17 academic books authored and edited, and then 41 book chapters, whoa, and then 81 referred journal articles, 15 referred conference publication, and 86 conference and symposia presentation. Oh, very huge number. And then he also published in high impact journal as Educational Theory and Philosophy, Australian Humanities Review, Continuum Environmental Humanities, Environmental Philosophy, Interdisciplinary Studies in Literature and Environment. And then Global Media Journal, Oral History Australia Journal, Media International Australia, and TEXT. And with Bloomsbury, Brill, McGill, Queen's, Newswood Books, Routledge, Reumann, and Littlefield, SUNY Press, University of Michigan, University of Minnesota, and University of Washington. And his poetry and nonfiction have been published by Fremantle Press, Margaret River Press, Arc Poetry Magazine, Australian Geographic, Action, Quartet Poetry Review, and Griffith Review. A review of his work have appeared in Australian Poetry, Sydney Morning Herald, The Conversation, and Weekend Australian. And then field of teaching and research are Australian Studies, Ecopoetics, Creative Writing, English Literature, or Modern Poetry, and then Cultural Studies, Environmental Humanities include Critical Plant Studies, Digital Humanities, Media Studies, and Eco-Criticism Professional Writing. Okay, now ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our second speaker, Dr. Charles Ryan. The time is yours.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Arif, and Dr. Ratna, and UNES, and the Research Institute at UNES for this opportunity to speak about publishing books and book chapters with reputable international publishers. And I'm going to give you a perspective from the humanities, arts, social sciences, and education. So my background is mostly in the humanities and arts field. And some of what I'll present connects well with what Dr. Zanul has presented already, but there are some different conventions within the humanities that are worth being aware of. So you want to write a book, your own book, or perhaps a book with other authors, or you feel that you need to write a book. In fact, many people have an inner desire, a kind of inner compulsion to write a book. So where do you begin? And I think there are at least two questions to ask yourself as you're getting going on this journey is, why do you want to write a book? And what kind of book do you want to write? Now, the second question is especially important because within the academic genre, there are many kinds of subgenres of academic books. And so it's important to be clear with the focus of your book project and where you want to take it. Who will be involved, or will it be more of a solitary journey? We have a kind of ideal of the writer as placid and writing comfortably. And as you see this picture of the famous American writer, Ernest Hemingway, comfortably writing in his seat with a pen and paper in the 1950s. But as most of us know, writing is hard work and requires a combination of belief, inspiration, commitment, discipline, goal setting, and one of my favorite terms to describe this, staying power, right? Committing to the whole process, which in the humanities can, for a book, it can be a 2 to 3 year process in some cases. But as Love just said, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step, with a single step. And so I'd like to give you some insight into how you can take that first important step towards publishing in these fields. So I'd just like to introduce the tradition of the book within the humanities, what's known as the Great Book tradition as the broader context that we are working in. I'd like to introduce publishing monographs, sole-authored or multi-authored. In the humanities, a monograph can be a longer work than Dr. Zul indicated. A monograph can be an extended study of a particular topic, and then edited collections, publishing book chapters, and writing and distributing calls for papers, which is essential if you're editing books or even editing special issues of journals or even conference calls for papers that will apply. And then we'll end with some practical strategies for writing books and also for identifying reputable publishers. And that's the key term that stands out for me in the title of the presentation today is reputable publisher, right? How do we decide if a publisher is reputable? How do we make a good choice? Let's begin with the tradition of the book within the humanities. And the Great Books tradition is described by some critics as including anywhere from 50 books to 2,000 books that have been central to Western humanities. And so what that means is that these books written by philosophers, theologians, historians, and others, they serve as a foundation of the Western humanities. Now, by humanities, I mean literature, philosophy, theology, history, art, and other fields. But I also want to say this is relevant to the arts, the creative arts of creative writing, visual art, and so forth, but also to the social sciences of anthropology, sociology, and other fields, as well as to education, right? So the great books are foundational to academic study in these fields. And they're foundational because they're regarded as significant to understanding the human condition and modern problems, even though they may have been written millennia ago, for example, by a Greek philosopher, by Aristotle or Plato. They still are regarded as pertinent to the situation today in the world. Now, many scholars in your fields, modern or contemporary scholars, have written in-depth studies of those works. And then their studies go on to become important in your fields. So, for example, maybe if you're in the field of philosophy, you read a secondary study about Plato's works. So that's why the Great Books tradition continues to inform the scholarship that's done in the humanities and other fields. And these secondary studies, these contemporary analyses of those great books can become classics in their own right in the fields we work within. And so the idea is when you're publishing a book chapter, or an edited collection, you're expanding and contributing to that scholarly tradition of the book within your field. Let's begin with a monograph and publishing monographs. A monograph in the humanities context is a single volume work that provides an in-depth perspective into a specialized area of knowledge. It contributes to debates within your field. And that's why it's specialized, because those debates may not be understood by academics outside of your field, and certainly they will be difficult to understand for the general readerly public. Now, a monograph expands or contributes to ongoing scholarship on a particular topic. They're written for academic audiences. They are self-contained. So all the argumentation within the monograph is self-contained. If you are within that field, you should be able to pick up the monograph and understand it, its logic, its flow, etc. And most importantly, these monographs are typically stocked by academic and research libraries. So you, as a rule of thumb, you won't find a scholarly monograph for sale at a popular bookshop in town, but sometimes that rule does break down. So why are monographs important? I think the reasons are similar in the technical fields as they are in the humanities, arts, social sciences. There are the academic rewards for tenure and promotion. Having a book, either a monograph or an edited collection, helps with your application process. A monograph helps also to identify the impact of your research. Now, impact assessment is becoming more important within universities, and having published a book is one good indicator of impact. It means that your research is able to reach a broad audience through the medium of the book. Grant applications are often enhanced through the publication of a book or book chapter, and this can impact the distribution of research funds, which is very important in a, as we know, very competitive academic world of today. But there are certainly other reasons, and these have to do with dissemination of knowledge. The book in some way is a more stable form long-term. I'm talking about centuries, decades, long-term. Our books may still be on those library shelves next century, whereas articles, although they may have digital object identifiers, I think there's a sense that they're perhaps less stable in the long term in the humanities context. So there's a dissemination of knowledge. There's also personal and professional fulfillment. Writing a book is extremely time-consuming and challenging, and there are lots of ups and downs that you encounter. If you've written a thesis, you know that that's certainly the case. So once you break through the other side and have published that and have that yay moment, you can relish in that personal feeling of fulfillment. So I'd like to give some examples from my own background publishing books, monographs in this instance. This is the first one that I published. It was an adaptation or a modified version of my PhD thesis, which I wrote in Australia. I completed the dissertation in 2011. I wrote the dissertation with a book in mind, so I was able to convert the dissertation into this book relatively painlessly. And so this book covers elements of philosophy and an area of philosophy known as aesthetics, and also literary studies. Now, I published it with a very small startup press called True Heart. And the reason I did it is because they were specializing at the time in this area that I work within, which is called the environmental humanities. And so I felt comfortable working with them. In hindsight, I could have gone with a more reputable, better known press, but as a first port of call, I found it to be a good experience, and the production value of the book was high with the hardback cover, fairly good distribution as well. I went on to publish 3 books in a row with a press called Common Ground, based in the US. As far as ranking of the press, it would be sort of in the lower third of humanities book publishers. But that was okay with me because once again, I found that the books were of good quality, they were peer reviewed, and they weren't distributed very well to the library system. But as far as getting my book publishing activity going, they were good for stimulating that. And here's the second in that installment called Being With, once again, an interdisciplinary book in the humanities, and then the third and final installment with that press called Common Ground in the United States. Now, my record started to improve with reputable publishers when I began with Routledge, which is in the middle to high ranking of academic presses in the humanities. This is a focused study on the role of plant life in contemporary Western poetry. So it's, once again, a niche area, very focused, specialized area, and that's why it's a monograph. It's not a short study, it's 80 to 100,000 words, but it's regarded as a monograph in the humanities. And more recently, I've turned to writing textbooks, which the boundary between a monograph and a textbook is sometimes blurry. This is probably 3/4 textbook and 1/4 monograph, insofar as it's an in-depth study of the field, but it's designed for an undergraduate readership. So there's lots of pedagogical features, and that's called Introduction to the Environmental Humanities. So you can see there's the arc over that 9 years from a very specialized startup, poorly known press to a press that's more widely known with Routledge, and most scholars in the humanities will be able to readily recognize a Routledge book and have used Routledge publications before. Now, the publication process often begins with the proposal. The way that I look at the proposal in terms of workload is it's about the same time commitment as writing a chapter. So if it takes you about, let's say, a month to write a book chapter, it will probably take you about a month to write a book proposal, right? I'll send the proposal around to, I'll send it to Dr. Ratna to send to the participants today, and you can look at the different categories in the proposal. There are variations between publishers and what they require, but generally it's the same. They want a statement of aims that doesn't need to be extremely long. It can be 3 to 4 paragraphs in this case. They would like to know the chapter headings and to have a detailed summary of at least 1 paragraph per chapter. The manuscript length. And now defining the market is very important for proposals of all kinds, because the publisher wants to know how they will market your book and how your book contributes uniquely to a particular debate. And only you know that as the author. So you have to make that clear to the publisher. And a list of competing books is also important, where you might write 6 to 12 competing titles that are similar to your proposed book, but slightly different, and thus the reason for your proposed book. Okay, so it's a marketing activity. The press wants to know, if they invest in your book, how will they be able to market it? Okay, let's, so this is just the first page of the proposal that hopefully you'll get a copy of after the seminar. And you can see I've listed the working title. Now that can change over time, and it will. And I listed the authors as myself and my colleague, but in fact, we changed positions as the book writing process went along, so that my co-author is now the lead author, and he agreed to work directly with the press and negotiate different aspects with the press that I didn't have the time to do. And so he's now the lead author and I'm the second author. And you can see the statement of aims can be concise. In fact, it should be concise. It doesn't need to be too elaborate. 2 to 3 paragraphs where you clearly map out the aims of your proposed monograph. So let's look at, well, something for you to reflect on. What is a monograph? Have you published one? Would you like to? What is the first step you will take? And do you have a reputable international publisher in mind? Just something to reflect on just momentarily now. And if any questions come up in reflecting on these questions, please feel free to pose it during the Q&A session. Okay, so let's cover edited collections in the humanities. A lot of what I'll say is related or similar to what you previously heard. An edited volume is a collection of scholarly chapters written by different authors. So what you have with an edited volume is a collection of diverse perspectives on a particular topic. Now, an edited collection or edited volume is also known as a multi-author volume, but it is not an anthology, right? An anthology is something different. An anthology is a collection of literary works. It's also not a collected edition, which is once again a literary genre in which the writings of a particular author are brought together into one book. And it's also not a reader. A reader is something often used in teaching, where you bring together the text that you're using in teaching. So I've seen that anthology, the term anthology is sometimes used interchangeably, but it is different. So edited volume or edited collection is the preferred term of those. Now, This is the first that I published in 2016. I think we had 16 chapters. I worked with 3 editors, and the book publisher is called Lexington Books. Now, Lexington Books isn't what's known as an imprint of the press called Rowman and Littlefield. Now, Rowman and Littlefield is well regarded in the humanities. And so because Lexington Books is an imprint, like a division of Rowman and Littlefield, I felt confident in this particular publisher. In fact, they did a good job with the production value of the book. It's a hardback book, and it's stocked in many academic libraries. But this book was much different animal, much different scenario. This is a book that I co-edited with my 3 other editors from the other book, called The Language of Plants, very interdisciplinary book. And it was published by the University of Minnesota Press. That's important for at least 2 reasons. In the UK and the US and potentially elsewhere, university presses are regarded as the most reputable. I think it has to do with the legacies of the presses. They're often very old, but also the idea that they're not pressured by the need to sell books. They're often linked to universities, so they can be more selective and therefore more prestigious. Now, this book was also important because it's published in a series that many people in the field publish in. And so before publishing this book, I read a number of books in that particular series. So we knew as editors that the book would gain some visibility. I went on to edit this book by myself, but it only had about 12 or 13 chapters, which is quite manageable for a sole editor. And once again, the theme is quite broad, Southeast Asian eco-criticism, but each contributor brought a particular perspective to that broad theme. And that's really the nature of an edited collection. I've gone on to work with former students and then co-editing this book, for example, about Australian environmentalism, staying once again with Lexington Books. The case is when you become familiar with the process with a particular press, you find yourself returning to that press. If you feel confident in their production values, in the efficiency of their publication process, in the distribution of the books, you'll be inclined to work with them again. And conversely, they'll be inclined to work with you as the editor or author. Now, this is the second proposal that I hope will be distributed to you to look at carefully. This is for a recent edited collection with Springer. The particular division of Springer is Springer Nature, and their office, as I understand it, is in Singapore. So, you know, the mechanics are more or less the same across proposals. There's the names of the editors, and in fact, I put myself as the lead editor, but once again, my co-editor later on became the lead editor because of changes in our circumstances, and he now negotiates or mediates with the press, and I have my roles have changed as the second editor on the book. All right, have a look at that when you have a chance to see the particular requirements and how in writing this proposal we address those requirements. Now, book chapter, well, yeah, once again, reflect. What is an edited collection? How is it different to a monograph? Have you edited a book before? Would you like to? And what is the first step that you take? So reflect on that, and if it stimulates any questions, let us know during the Q&A. All right, now for those who are starting off their publication journey, publishing a book chapter is a good intermediary between publishing journal articles and publishing books, because you get insight into the book publication process by publishing a chapter, but you're not wholly responsible for that process. The editor will be responsible for negotiating with the press, writing the proposal, preparing the manuscript as a whole, and so forth. A chapter, yeah, it's a main division of a piece of writing, the same as in a novel. It helps to divide the book into sections for navigation. A chapter is a good organizing block. If you're if you're planning a larger project, going from chapter to chapter is a good way to make the project manageable and less overwhelming. And even more, you might focus on sections of chapters. So writing a particular section within a certain time frame, rather than saying, well, I'll write this chapter in 2 months, you might say, I'll write this section in 2 weeks, right? And that helps break down the overall intensity of the process. So why publish a book chapter rather than a journal article? Well, there are certain practical reasons, and I'll give you a few examples from my recent publication work. This is a book on a very particular topic, emerging topic within literary studies called geopoetics, how poets have written about landscape, essentially. It's edited by 3 very strong, well-known scholars. And so contributing to this book gave me an opportunity to have my work included in this foundational edited collection, and also to work with very good editors who are also very good scholars in their own right. Okay, so that's a reason for deciding to publish in a book collection rather than a journal. A similar case, say, with this book, where having my chapter in there alongside other writers who are well-known, or academics who are well-known in the field, helps to promote my work, to make it more visible, to increase its extent and its impact. And more recently, this book on the seasons, an edited collection, and published by SUNY Press, State University of New York Press. Now, when I was a student studying a master's degree years ago, I read books published by SUNY Press. So I knew this is a strong press within my fields, particularly environmental philosophy, environmental humanities, environmental studies. And so I wanted to get some kind of publication with SUNY Press, and this was a good opportunity. And so maybe in the future, I'll be able to work with this reputable press more. All right, so once again, just reflect, what is a book chapter? Why might you decide to publish a book chapter instead of a journal article? Ask that question to yourself. Have you published in a book before? Was it an international book? Is an international publisher? Would you like to, and what's the first step that you'll take? So just reflect on that momentarily and let us know during the Q&A. Okay, so moving along to writing and distributing calls for papers. This is an essential tool for editors. And the idea with a call for papers is that you're announcing an edited project and inviting contributions. So you've put together this idea for an edited book, and you want to invite members from your scholarly community to submit chapters for the book. Now, call for papers in the context of a book is sometimes called a call for chapters or a call for contributions. Sometimes you'll see the term call for proposals. Less commonly, you'll see call for abstracts or call for expressions of interest, but they tend to include the same thing, the provisional title of the edited collection, which can change over time as you refine your ideas as editors. The names of the editors, that's a very important component, because if as a prospective author, I'm looking at that call and I see a name that I know and whose work I know, I'll be more inclined to send a proposal for the book. The purpose and aim of the collection, suitable topics usually listed in bullet points. So these are suitable topics that fall within the broad scope of the edited collection. And then practicalities like the abstract submission guidelines, formatting, deadlines, email addresses, and so forth. So how is it announced? Through email and email lists, more increasingly through social media, through the websites of professional organizations, through newsletters of those same organizations. Very often during conferences and symposia, there will be flyers with calls for papers. After conferences and symposia, if you've shared email addresses, and as organizers, that's important to do, to share email addresses so that participants can share their calls for papers that may be of interest. Around campuses, you sometimes see calls for papers, but it also they're also distributed through word of mouth and in-person networking by the publishers themselves, right? So if an editor has proposed a collection to a publisher, the publisher will sometimes then solicit contributions. That's less common, I would say. And the editor of the book series can sometimes approach particular authors who they would love to include in their collection, and then occasionally from supervisors to postgrads. So in the particular edited collection I'm working on now, we began this process over 2 years ago. So you can see this we called it a call for abstracts, but it's dated July 15th, 2019. And this is on a website called HNet, Humanities and Social Sciences Online. It's one of the premier clearinghouses for calls for papers, HNet. This is another very important website for disseminating calls for papers. It's called UPenn, University of Pennsylvania English Department. And you can see the different categories on the left side here, these different categories under which the calls for papers can fall. So it's a very good resource for both learning about projects you can contribute to and disseminating your own calls for papers. So this is just the rough outline of a call for papers. There's the preliminary title of the collection, or provisional. That's in fact changed considerably since this initial call for papers, but that's okay. We've changed it as editors to make it more fully reflect the content of the book. Co-edited by my colleague in the Philippines and myself, and then the due date of the abstract, and then some rationale for why this book and why now. That's quite important. And that might include mentioning other key texts in the area and what they haven't necessarily achieved, and therefore our book will help fill a gap in a particular area of scholarship. So you can see there we've noted those key texts in the field. Okay, calls for papers. Have you written one? If you would like to, or if you have already, how did you distribute it, or will you distribute the call for papers? Now, in terms of internationalizing the work that we do, this is a very important consideration. We can send our call for papers to the colleagues in our immediate universities and where we live and so forth, but to internationalize those calls for papers and therefore internationalize the edited collections and journal issues that we do, sending it to websites such as HNet or UPenn or others that are particularly strong in your fields is quite important. Okay, now, so we've looked at monographs, edited collections, book chapters, and calls for papers, kind of like an anatomy of academic publishing in the book world, right? So, but now let's look at particular strategies for writing books and book chapters and for identifying reputable publishers. I think of writing in much the same way that Picasso thought of painting. So Picasso said, if you're clear in your mind about what you're going to paint, there is no point in painting it, right? And Sagan said, I have to start to write to have ideas. And the novelist, American novelist Alice Walker said, writing is a process of discovery. Sometimes you don't know what you know. You may know it, but you have no idea how it fits together. The idea here is that writing is a process of learning, discovering, identifying. And sometimes you have to go through that process of writing to come to a kind of aha moment where you're seeing how things fit together in your analysis of a particular body of work. Now the opposing view would say writing is just a representation of what we've already done, right? I did this study of a particular literary work, and now my writing is just recording my realizations when I was conducting that analysis. Right? That would be the opposing view, but I look at writing as a process of discovery. What this means is that as you're discovering things through that process, you then have to go back and revise the writing to make it more lucid and to have more flow for the reader, okay? Because that initial process of writing it out, of discovering through writing, may not be lucid enough. So you have to go back and refine it. Because that's how I view writing. Now here's some strategies for writing books and book chapters. If you've written a doctoral thesis, you have material already in hand for a book. And so you might as well consider converting your doctoral thesis into a monograph. A doctoral thesis is typically 80 to 100,000 words. It's the same length as many monographs in the humanities. A doctoral thesis will have particular components that are specific to it as a genre. So, for example, a methodology chapter or a literature review chapter. When you're converting your thesis into a monograph, you revise those terms so you don't use methodology to a great extent or literature review. You make the book more of an overall narrative. Small adjustments that can go a long way to convincing a press to accept your revised thesis as a monograph. If you're starting a new book or book chapter writing project, commit a certain number of hours or days per week to writing. Schedule it out. We do that with classes, right? I have to teach from 2 to 4 p.m. I would suggest also doing it with writing. Otherwise, writing can take, second fiddle, especially if we get busy. We'll say, well, I won't do the writing today. But in fact, it's an essential part of our academic life. Divide your writing into manageable chunks. It's one thing to say, well, I'm going to write this book by February of next year. It's another to say, I'm going to write this section of this chapter by next Thursday, right? I'm going to stick to that micro deadline, and then section upon section leads to chapter, and chapter upon chapter leads to book. So dividing your writing into those manageable chunks is essential. And that helps you to set realistic goals within the larger aim of your book or chapter. Write when you feel most productive. That may be the morning or night. It may be whatever circumstance is particular to you, drinking coffee or no coffee or whatever it may be. I recommend trying to write in smaller chunks rather than larger chunks of time. So this is like saying, I'm going to work on my book next week for 4 days in a row, nonstop. Right? I know from my own experience, this is like a very, very difficult task to set for oneself. It's much easier to take the little by little approach and say, you know what, tomorrow I'm going to work on the book for 2 hours from 9 to 11, because that's when I feel most lucid. And then do my teaching and my administration and other things in the afternoon, right? If you're co-authoring a book or a book chapter, show as you go. What this means is that you show your progress to your co-author. It may be that you've worked on a section of the chapter and you ask feedback from your co-author. The opposing approach is to draft all of your what you're committed to writing and then show it to your author, who may or may not give you good feedback. It's also the case, perhaps your co-author thinks you should change course just a little or consider some other elements of research. You can then do that at the early stage of your co-authoring rather than the sort of frenzied last minute where you're trying to incorporate feedback. Shut off social media and limit internet usage. It's almost like sacrilege to say that, but the reality is that social media breaks our attention, fractures our attention in a way that's not conducive to writing. So I suggest turning the alarm notification sounds off of your social media, putting your phone in another part of the room, limiting your internet usage to particular articles or research that you might have to access to continue writing. Reference as you write, so important, and to use a program such as EndNote or another referencing management software. The alternative is to do a kind of sloppy job with referencing and then correct it at the very end. And I can tell you that's not only very arduous, but it does lead to numerous errors in referencing. So I recommend when you're writing and you make a reference, take care of that reference at that moment, and using EndNote or another program is a great way to do that. All right, so that's about writing. Now, how do we select a reputable publisher? Right, this is the question. Well, one strategy is to look for well-regarded publishers in your field. Who did you read when you were doing your master's degree or PhD, right? And who published their work? Okay, look at the publishers of the work that you read when you were studying. That's a good indication. Now, in the humanities, as I mentioned, university presses are sort of the top tier. You could think of Oxford University Press or Cambridge University Press. Middle tier are publishers like Routledge, Palgrave Macmillan, Springer, several others. And then there's the sort of the lower tier of presses that are lesser known, still peer reviewing the manuscripts and putting it through scholarly rigor, but lesser known. And there are reasons for choosing that bottom third, but I would say always shoot higher, certainly in the middle tier. Look for Routledge, look for opportunities with Palgrave Macmillan, which is a very well-known and regarded press. Look for publishers with good marketing and distribution. Now, one way you can determine this is go to a website called WorldCat, C-A-T. Put a book title into the search bar. It's maybe just a book that you've read or know of, and look for the number of libraries that carry that title. If the number looks good in the range of 200 or more, preferably 500 or more in the thousands, identify the press and then research that particular press. Search for book series with Scopus or other rankings. Now, in the humanities, book series typically aren't ranked with Scopus, but that is changing. So if you see, for example, Springer has a number of book series in the humanities and arts and social sciences areas. If they're ranked with Scopus or listed with Scopus, that's of course a very good indication as well. Focus on university presses, it's prestigious, but have your second, third, and fourth choices ready as well. Routledge, Springer, and Palgrave are always good choices in the humanities. Now, this is a question that often comes up, is the question about predatory publishers. How do I identify a predatory publisher? Typically, it's a publisher that will solicit your work via email. And you've probably received these sorts of emails where they say, hi, Dr. So-and-so. We're so impressed by the article we read. We'd like to invite you to submit a whole manuscript. Now, I won't mention particular predatory publishers, but you can easily find them out online if you do a search. Their practices are not the most rigorous. For example, they might ask for a publishing fee of $1,000 to $2,000. They may not have the manuscript peer reviewed. There are lots of signs that indicate a predatory publisher. So be careful when you receive those flattering emails about how great you are. They may be from a predatory publisher. If you can get a budget from your university or through a grant, try to budget for help with editing, proofing, formatting, manuscript preparation, and also indexing. Indexing comes at the very end of a book publication process, but it can often be quite arduous. It can take 1 to 2 weeks if you're doing it alone. There are professional indexers who do very thorough job and are worth paying. I indexed a book recently. The book was about 300 pages and it cost under $1,000. That's a good investment. If you can get a budget for these sorts of things, it's a good idea. Okay, great. I think that's all I wanted to cover. Please, you're welcome to email me if you have any questions about what we covered in this session, or if you want to ask what I think about a particular publisher, if the publisher is reputable or otherwise, you're welcome to contact me. And in closing, I'd just like to thank all the organizers today. It's a very valuable event. This sort of knowledge will really help to advance your research productivity and hopefully also give you confidence, because publishing a book is something that never fails to overwhelm me. Even though I've done it numerous times now, I'm always looking for strategies to make it more efficient for myself and more enjoyable as well. So I hope that some of what I presented will help you along your way. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. John Ryan, for the very interesting and inspiring talk. And before I read the resume of Dr. John Ryan's presentation, I would like to say that Mr. Rector is still joining with us today in this webinar. Thank you very much, Mr. Rector, Professor Dr. Fatur Manemhum, for your support, your motivation for us to write a book or book chapter and get it published by a reputable publisher. Once again, thank you very much, Mr. Rector. And the highlight presentation from Dr. John Ryan, he asked two important questions. Why do you want to write a book, and what kind of book do you want to write? This is two important questions that must have to ask for ourselves. And then he also present about strategies for writing books and book chapters. For instance, convert your doctoral thesis into a book or monograph, and then commit a certain number of hours or days per week to writing. Yeah, this is very difficult for us to spend hours or days per week to writing. And then divide your writing into manageable chunks, section or chapters, and then set realistic goals. What is your goals within the larger aim of your book or chapter? And then write when you feel most productive, morning or night. Yeah, usually after prayer subuh, this is the most productive time. And then if you are co-authoring, so as you go, ask for feedback. And then shut off your social media and limits internet usage. Yeah, this is very hard to do. Shut off your social media. Yeah, we are, depend on the Facebook and then Instagram, TikTok. Yeah, so we need to shut off our social media and reference as you write and use a program such as an EndNote. Okay, and then writing is a process of discovery. Sometimes you don't know what you know. You may know it, but have no idea how it fits together. And then the most important is a journey of 1,000 miles begin with a single step. So let's write by doing a single step. Okay, thank you very much, Dr. John Ryan. And then let's move to Q&A session. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite a question from you, from the audience, from the participants. Is it okay if you have question in Bahasa or in English? Our team will translate your question into English, so feel free to ask your question. You can ask directly by pressing button raise hand, and we will give you a chance to deliver your question directly, or you can write down your question in the chat box column. Don't forget mention your name, institution, and state to which presenter you address your question. Okay, please raise your hand if you have any question. Okay, during we waiting the question from the participant, I would like to share screen. So we have a Q&A from Zoom chat box. And the first question is from Dr. Edi Purwanto. Dear Mr. Zainul Akmar, there is so many publisher. Could you tell me tips to choose appropriate publisher? Could you tell me which one you recommended? Thank you. Okay, Dr. Zainul Akmar, Zakaria, please give your response to Dr. Edi Purwanto.
Ya, terima kasih Mr. Arif. For Dr. Edi, yeah, like mentioned by the other speaker just now, it is always good to have a list of potential publishers. Yeah, but if you, from my personal preference or personal steps that I would take is I would always look for a publisher who would give me a wider access for audience. Okay, so these are normally the publisher who are has a has a good reputation, a long history of being a good publisher, and also well known to most of the researchers everywhere. Okay, so if you ask me, always go for the researcher, a well-known publisher, for example, like we mentioned, the one that we know, Wiley, Springer, Elsevier, Blackwell Publishing House, Routledge, for example. Yeah, those are publishers that can assist you to disseminate your book to a wider audience, because that is what we want. Because we always want that what we have produced to be beneficial to most of the people out there. Yeah, so that's my answer.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Zainul Akmar. And then we have Bulanglang Handayani. Hello, Bulanglang. You could unmute your microphone and then directly ask to the speakers. Halo, Bulanglang.
Ya, tadi
Okay.
saya coba klik belum bisa.
Okay.
Oke, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm going to ask to Mr. Ryan related to the matter of writing our doctoral thesis into a book. So, what sort of strategy that we can do for doing that? I think that's all. Thank you very much.
Yes, the first strategy would be to select a reputable publisher. So let's say it's Springer. Springer is a publisher in your field, for example, and it's well known by your colleagues, and you've read books by Springer, and so you feel confident with Springer. Okay, so the next step is to then look on the publisher's website, look for the guidelines, and see if they allow thesis to publication, thesis to book publication. Now, the reason that's important is because it's often clear to the publisher, even if the thesis has been revised, it's often clear to the publisher that it originated as a thesis. So that means if they accept thesis to book publication, they'll work with you, and they'll perhaps even give you some guidelines for revising a thesis. The main idea, at least in the humanities, is terminological. So a thesis often uses particular specific terminology that's required by the form of, or the genre or convention of a thesis, right? So you have your chapter on literature review, you have a chapter on methodology, you have a chapter on results, and so forth. Now, most academic books in the humanities don't use that kind of terminology, so it can often be a matter of revising, for example, your literature review chapter into a review of the field, where the strategies can be as simple as removing the term literature review or removing the term methodology and refining that section so it reads more in the convention of a book. Now, you might, in this sense, enlist an editor who has experience with academic publications and who can edit your thesis with a view to publishing it as a book. So it's not an arduous process, really, because let's say 75% of everything is there in the thesis. It may be a matter of revising it with a book in mind. The other consideration is that you may have to go back and add current research that's been done in your field to your thesis to get it up to book publication standard. So if you published your thesis a few years ago or more, it's obviously going to not reflect current scholarship in the field. You may have to add to the references and that sort of thing. Now, on a very practical level, you have to convert your thesis into the form required by the press in terms of referencing and formatting. That can be very arduous. For example, if you used footnotes in your thesis and your press wants you to use parenthetical referencing with a list of references at the end, oh, that can take you a very, very long time. So once again, if you can budget for this sort of assistance, it's worthwhile. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. John Ryan. And then if you have a question, please raise hand, press button raise hand, and then, okay. During we waiting, the question directly from the participant. Okay, wait. I will provide a Q&A from the chat box. And the second question from the chat box is from Ganis Putra Widanarto. And then introduce, my name is Ganis from UNES. A question for Pak Zainul. May we see the correspondence with the publisher during the process of submitting your book publication? And then also a question for Pak John. What educational themes allow international reputable publisher to accept? For the committee, good luck always. Thank you very much. Okay, and the first question is for Pak Zainul. Please give your response.
Thank you very much, Mr. Arif. This is from Pak Ganis, yeah, just now. The question for me from Pak Ganis, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Ganis, for the question. So I'm seeing that what I understand is the correspondence between myself and the publisher during the book proposal form, if I'm not mistaken. So during this time, actually, you need to comply with all the requirements, basically. So if they want you to provide them with annotated table of contents, please do so. Try to be as close as possible to the final version that you're going to put in your book later. Yeah, because like I said, along the line, there will be some 1 or 2 withdrawals. Okay, what if another one of your colleagues would like to join the contributing in your book chapter at this stage? Yeah, so maybe if 1 or 2 withdrawals, you can replace with this new one. So always ensure that you have a good table of contents, because this will be referred to later when your book is published. And that's number 1. Number 2, also you have to provide, like I mentioned just now, the sample chapter and also the abstracts for all the chapters, as well as your CV. So because at this stage, the publisher would like to see whether you are ready to give them the completed book draft when they set a particular deadline later. And so this is about organizing yourself and your team of co-editors to come up with a good book proposal to be submitted to the publisher. Yeah. So that's my answer. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Zainul Akmar. Great answer. And then next question is for Pak John. What educational themes allow international reputable publisher to accept? Okay, Dr. John Ryan, please give your response.
Thank you, Pak Arif. Thank you for the question, Pak Ganis. I think there are 2 points there that are important to consider. a publisher will want to make sure that your study is sufficiently international. What that means is, let's say you've done a study of English language learning in Indonesia, and let's say even a particular part of Indonesia. Your case study is extremely valuable part of your project, but the publisher will want to see that you are sufficient, that you have a sufficiently international context. And what that means is you might survey comparable studies done in Southeast Asia, in Asia more generally, or even internationally, right? So what sorts of issues have other researchers encountered internationally outside of that particular Indonesian context? So that's the first point, to make sure that your proposal is sufficiently international, that you've reviewed the literature to some extent internationally, at least the key studies. The second point I would mention here is that there are certain themes that attract immediate interest. I'm thinking, for example, COVID-19. If you published a book on the impact of COVID-19 on education in Indonesia, it would be of high interest to a publisher because it's a current salient issue in the world today. So yeah, there are two approaches then. The first is to situate your particular study, national study, or the context of that, situate it internationally in the literature. And secondly, select research themes that address a current topic in the world today. In addition to COVID-19, it could be environmental sustainability, which is climate change, right? It's a concern across the world, not only in the country and countries in which we work. So those would be the 2 points I would suggest. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is it clear, Pak Ganis? Okay, I hope it is clear for answering your questions. And then, okay, dear participant, if you have any question, please feel free to ask directly to the speakers. Okay, Bulanglang Handayani again, raise a hand. Please, Bulanglang. Hello, Bulanglang.
Yeah, sorry, I haven't clicked the unmute button
Okay.
yet. Well, I don't know to whom I should address my question, my second question here, but I think I would deliver in Bahasa first. Ya, Pak Arif, please translate it. Ya,
Okay.
Jika tujuan penulisan book chapter, I'm so sorry, salah satunya adalah memenuhi salah satu kewajiban luaran penelitian yang dilakukan dalam rentang waktu 1 tahun. Sorry, I have to yeah. So saran-saran apakah dari kedua narasumber yang sebaiknya bisa kita lakukan? That's all. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Mbak Intan, please.
So here, Bulanglang asks about we have a research and we have the output that must be completed for about a year. It's a book chapter. So do you have any suggestion or any strategy to make it come true in a year? Because we have the output from the research itself. So it's both of you, maybe Ryan or Mr. Zaino. It's okay.
Yeah.
Please, John. Please.
So you've done the research and you have 1 year to write the chapter. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, that's it.
Yes.
How many are you? How many authors are you?
Berapa penulis?
Sorry.
Berapa penulis? How many authors, Bulanglang?
Tidak ada ketentuan how many authors, but for all members of the research should include in the in the what is it in this book chapter. So
Okay.
I only do one research, yeah. But the what is it? The output should be a book chapter. So that's my problem, I think.
Okay. Are all members of the research team going to co-author with you? So if there are 10 members of the research team, will they all be co-authors?
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
No, no,
okay.
only one. Only I think well, what should I say? I don't know exactly, but I think from my team, I have to write a book chapter. So in my opinion, I only write a chapter of a book. That's my opinion, but I don't know exactly. So what sort of suggestion?
Okay, so it sounds like there are a few things that you should consider. The first is whether you will write the chapter on your own, or whether you will have co-authors. If you have co-authors, then it's good to meet regularly with your co-authors the first 6 months. Let's say you have 1 year to write the chapter. In the first 6 months, meet regularly with them through Zoom or in person if you can, to establish your roles, who will be the lead author, and who will be the second, third author, and so forth. Now, the lead author has particular duties. The lead author is like the architect of the chapter, right? The lead author also typically communicates the most with the editor of the book. All right, so the first suggestion I would have is clarify the roles of your co-authors. Now, a year is a long time to write a book chapter, so that's good. You have a lot of time to do a really good job. I would say the first 6 months would be critical to understand current research that's being done and to include in your literature review in the chapter. So let's say it's about a technical topic. Well, let's say it has to do with COVID-19's impact on education. The first 6 months, make sure you're becoming aware of the vast amount of research that's being published about that topic. And then this last point I'll mention, and then Zano, you'll have important comments also to make. The last point I'll make is, well, the question is, do you already have a publisher, right? So if your team is publishing the book, that's a whole different set of responsibilities, right? But if your team is contributing to a book that's already being edited, it's a little different. So yeah, I would say in the next short term, just clarify your roles and responsibilities. And if you haven't identified a publisher of the book, try to find a reputable publisher, at least to research. Yeah.
Excuse me, Mr. Ryan.
Yes.
How if, well, we only make a chapter of the book chapter, yeah, a chapter of the book chapter, and then what about other chapters? Is it okay if I ask other authors? So I ask my colleagues, well, to have to submit or what is it, to join the our work of making or developing book chapters. What do you think about this?
From what you're saying, it sounds like you're going to contribute a chapter to a book that you're also editing. So okay, you'll need to get your colleagues also to contribute chapters. If there's a minimum number, you should try to find that out with a particular publisher, a minimum number of chapters. In the humanities, a minimum number is usually 10. In the technical sciences, I think it's higher. So Zano, do you have any suggestions?
Actually, John, Bulang Lang, actually, I would very much agree with information shared by John just now. If I just may add of your question just now, you only have one chapter to be published, and you need to come up, if I'm not mistaken, you need to come up for it to be published within the similar year. Yeah. So actually, since a publication of book chapter is going to take some time, so the timing is very important here. Chapter published, let's say this year 2021, it should have already been submitted into a project by a book project last year. Yeah, we should always have this in mind. Meaning, like you mentioned just now, you have this idea that you're going to publish more than one chapters. Yeah, so this is actually a very good approach, because if you have, let's say, 3 to 4 chapters you're going to publish in one particular year, and you have different colleagues with you, one of you can be the corresponding author or the lead author for each chapter. So you can take, organize the completion of each chapters. So this would make all of you to be able to submit more chapters in 1 year, so that if we have a good fortune, it can be published that particular year as well. If not, it's going to be published next year. And also, like what John mentioned just now, another avenue for us to publish book chapter is, if you want it to be quicker, you can publish it in the form of review paper. Yeah, like your literature. Review papers, which hopefully can be published much faster compared to a book chapter. But nevertheless, both are academic outputs, and both are very much welcomed by the scientific community. And that's my answer.
Okay, Bulang Lang. We hope that the answer is clear for your question.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Ryan and Pak Zainul.
Okay, and then just connect the question from Bulang Lang. We have question from Pak Barudin, and the question are, Mr. Ryan, how long did it take from the very beginning of a book to the published time? A monograph, edited book, or edited collection? Which of those types is the easiest one to begin? Okay, this is a question from Pak Rian.
Great, thank you for the question, Parudin. The time for me has always varied quite a bit. Okay, so let's take the early on when I published my thesis, my PhD thesis. The whole process took about 1 year because I already had all that material in hand and could easily or readily convert it into a monograph. Now, in another example, let's say the time that I began writing the book to the publication of the book, more like 2 years. With another example, it took about 9 months to a year to write the book of about 100,000 words. And then the publication, review, and production process took about 9 months to another year. So I would say in the humanities, with a monograph, it's reasonable to expect anywhere from 1 year to 2 years for a book, single authored monograph. Now with an edited collection, the one example I showed you the call for papers. That was actually from July 2019. And so this book is already taking over 2 years. The reason, and it will likely be published next year, so that will be realistically a 3-year process for the edited book. And why that took so long is that we have a lot of contributors, a lot of co-authors on the chapters. So I would say there's 20 chapters, which is a lot for humanities area, and contributors in total about 30 to 40. And so it took a lot of work, and we had changes in the lineup of the chapters. We had a third editor who then dropped off at some point. We had a lot of changes in our workflow. So that's a 3-year process. I would say the fastest would be, the easiest would be thesis to book, because you already have all that material on hand. The second easiest would be a short edited collection in the humanities. Let's say short, by short I mean 8 to 12 chapters. You can publish that within a year, an edited book within the humanities within a year. Yeah, thank you for the question.
Okay, thank you, Dr. John Ryan, for your answer. Maybe Pak Zainul Akmar also have an experience about how long the process of publish a book or book chapter. Please share your experience to us, Pak Zainul.
Thank you very much, Mr. Arif. Normal one, it can easily take between, for it to be available online, means all the processes have been completed. It can be between 9 months to 12 months. Yeah. So actually, you yourself as the editors, you can do your job maybe very quickly. Yeah? You can contact the corresponding author, you give them, let's say, 1 month to come up with a chapter. Yeah. Maybe sometimes the reviewing process is going to take some time. The reviewing process at the editorial office stage is going to take some time. Yeah. So after that, actually, for them to come up with a design cover of your book, even though you have sent your book proposal in the final format form according to what had been stipulated, when it comes to the editorial office, they will make it in the camera-ready form. So this is also going to take some time, normally within 6 to 8 weeks. So I would say that it will be between 9 to 12 months easily. Okay, that's my answer.
Okay, thank you. So based on the Pak John and Pak Zainul, it needs around 8 to 12 months. Yeah, it depends on the number of the chapters. Is it a little chapter or huge chapters, and then authors and co-authors involved in the book writing. Okay, actually, I already pick up the question from the registration form. There are a lot of questions addressed to Pak John and Pak Zainul, but first of all, I would like to add the question from the chat box. This is from AA Jaziri. From AA Jaziri. Okay, from AA Jaziri. Okay, the question for Dr. Zainul and Dr. John Ryan. Based on your experience in writing various or many books, and I think that you are very busy, not only writing books, but also doing research, teaching, and many more. And could you share your own strategies, maybe how you manage your time in writing and what the best time for writing? Thanks a lot. Okay, maybe Pak Zainul first to give the response for AA Jaziri.
Thank you very much, Pak Arif and Pak Jaziri. The strategies actually depend on your kesesuaian. Kesesuaian is what in English? Suitability. You have your own way of working. Yeah, but for me, because we also have so many other responsibilities. Yeah, students, our lab, our research, our networking with others outside. Yeah. So for me, the tip is do have a team to work with you. Yeah, I'm sure in our own departments, in our own faculty, there will be some requirements for us to have a research group, a research center, or smaller groups of researchers who share the same research interests. Yeah. So to have this kind of and also try to rope in the younger staff. Okay, because normally the young staffs are the one who are more energetic. Yeah, they will welcome tasks given to them. So you as the lead editor or the senior staff would always, it's good for us to have a team that you can work together, where at the same time you have junior staff, you can give them some experience directly involving in this kind of activities, academic activities, which one day hopefully they can be an editor themselves one day, hopefully. Yeah, so my take home point is do have a team, a small team, doesn't have to be big, that you can work together. Yeah, that's my answer.
Okay, thank you, Pak Zainul. And then Pak John Ryan.
I really agree with Dr. Zainul. Co-authoring or co-editing is a great way to help manage your time and the load involved, especially when you're editing. I think it's important to clarify the responsibilities of each team member. So let's say you're co-authoring a chapter. Some of your colleagues may be better at writing. Some may be very good proofreaders, right? Some may be very good at finding literature. Others exceptionally good at referencing and formatting. So I think it's optimal to divide up the work based on your talents and your suitabilities, in fact, yeah. And then so if someone is very good at getting text on the page and writing material quickly, but not so good at editing it, perhaps a colleague can come up and look at that text and get it into grammatical form and so forth. So yes, that's a very good strategy for managing publishing and editing within your duties as an academic, which are quite massive at times with administration, teaching, supervising, public service, and so forth. The second recommendation I would make is to build writing into your schedule on a regular basis and actually mark it into your diary, into your calendar, much in the same way that teaching and meetings go into your calendar at particular times, 2 to 4, whatever it may be. Work that way also with your writing and your editing, if you can, so that it's integrated into your schedule, and therefore you're less likely to let it pass by or to procrastinate. So yeah, I'd say working with others, teamwork within editing and publishing is a great strategy. And secondly, build it into your schedule and routine as academics. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your response, Pak Zainul and Pak John. And then we still have a lot of time because there is a lot of question from the registration form. But if you have any question, if you want to directly tell to the speakers, I will give you a chance to ask directly to the speakers. Okay, dear audience, if you have any question, please feel free to ask directly to the speakers. Okay, since we don't have a direct question, this is the Q&A from the registration form. Okay, the question is from Pak Hendrikus Joko Yulianto from Central Java. The question is, what strategies to take to have our article published as a book chapter and in Scopus Index International Scholarly Journal? What strategies to take to have our article published as a book chapters and in Scopus Index International Scholarly Journals? Okay, probably Dr. John Ryan, could you give your response to this question?
The first strategy that comes to mind, maybe I would call it staging. Let's call the strategy staging. So let's say that you are going to present at a conference. You will write a script, typically write a script of at least 2,000 to 3,000 words. Now, it may be that you've submitted the article, the conference paper already, and that it will go into the proceedings. But the point is that when you present at a conference, you're generating text. It may be a script, unpublished script, or it may be a conference paper, which is typically shorter than an article. What I did when I was studying for a PhD is I would stage my publications so that the first phase of the publication would be as a conference paper, a short exploratory, perhaps less formed, but a conference paper. I would then expand the conference paper and revise it considerably and improve it to then make it into a journal article without simply copying the conference paper, but actually augmenting it and revising it substantially into a journal article. Now, there are cases also where you can revise a journal article, expand it, and reconfigure it into suitability for a chapter in a book. That's what I would call staging. So let's say the conference paper was 3,000 words, your journal article was 6,000 words, and your chapter is 9,000 words. That's going to be three very distinctly different pieces of writing, but interconnected because they show your progression and thought towards a particular analysis, literary studies, or whatever it may be. So staging is one approach. There are lots of practical strategies, but I would say be careful also of overcommitting, right? So if you find yourself wanting to write something for a conference versus spending time completing an article and giving it more sufficient attention, I would say spend the time writing the article rather than presenting a new topic on the conference. So yeah, not overcommitting also allows you the time to give the attention to writing which it demands.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. John Ryan. Maybe Pak Zainul Akmar have another perspective from the engineering perspective or science perspective. You have what kind of strategies to take article published as a book chapter?
Yeah, I just want to add something to what John has mentioned now about the making use of materials that you presented in a conference. Because most of the conferences, they would require for you to prepare an extended abstracts. Normally, it would be right around 3 to 4 pages. Yeah. So this extended abstracts is actually, even though it has been published in an index proceeding, which has been with an own ISBN number, it can be expanded a little bit to be now categorized as a journal article. Yeah. So even though you have published in you have present a paper in a conference, publish in an abstract proceeding of the conference, you can elaborate a bit and to make it now available or categorized as a journal article. That's number one. And also like us, I'm not sure how is it in other universities, yeah? But like us in UTM, for postgraduate students, okay, normally for postgraduate students, they will be evaluated twice, okay, before they can submit their thesis for examination. So normally for the first stage is where they're going to submit their proposal containing mostly literature reviews. All right. So for mungkin all the dosen here, the para dosen di sini, we can make use of this kind of early proposal from our students, from our postgraduate students, where we can together with them try to structure their research proposals into book chapters. Yeah, this can be done because normally in book chapters you don't normally include you don't have a specific result and discussion section. Okay, so you just have like a literature review where you analytically present findings reported by other researchers as well as your proposal. You wrote it in such a way, you write it in such a way so that it can become a good book chapters. So because there is occasion that you have result and discussion in a book chapter, but that is if the chapter requires for you to include a case study. Okay, for science and engineering, we have we've done so many essays in the laboratory to get some hard results. Okay, these can be used as our case study in relation to the topic that we discussed for our book chapter. Yeah, so that's my answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The answer. And the second question for Dr. Danianto from Yogyakarta, how to manage time, is already answered from the previous time. And then number 3, question from Ninu Solia Akhiro, Bu Ninu. How is the ordering steps is already answering by Dr. John Ryan presentation. And then this is the good question from Andi Anissa Sulolipu from South Sulawesi. How to simply write a good and interesting book chapter for novice writers? Yeah, because most of us is a novice writer. Maybe you could answer how to simply, maybe the strategies and the suggestion from the novice writers. First answer maybe from Dr. Zainul.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Arif. Yes, all of us started with as a novice writer. Yeah, all of us were a student before, where we were supervised by a senior researcher, senior lecturer. So these professors would introduce us, would slowly incorporate us into the whole academic system by offering us opportunity to write book chapters during our student days last time. Yeah, so those are actually for me opportunity or experience that you would later now you can use to start your own book chapter, to start your own book project. So to answer the question just now for me, if we are only about to start, try to not befriend, try to get together with the senior researcher, the senior professor, who I'm sure already have their own research team. Yeah, try to engage with them and saying that you would like to learn from him or her team, and because you want to improve yourself. So the take-home point here: have a mentor. The word is have a mentor. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Pak Dr. Semu, Pak Zainul. And then from perspective Dr. John Ryan, how to simply write a good and interesting chapter for novice writers.
Yes, thank you, Pak Arif, and thanks for the question. I agree wholly with Dr. Zainul. We all began somewhere, and in other professions, especially the trade professions, there's this idea of the apprenticeship, right? So if you're learning carpentry, you shadow a master carpenter and learn the tricks of the trade, right? And then after a certain period of apprenticeship, you then can command more responsibility. I think it's the same with publishing a book chapter or any form of publication. I would say the first step would be to look for an opportunity to apprentice with a senior academic. That could be your supervisor, your former supervisor, or a senior colleague perhaps you've met through a research project or through a conference. It's important to remember that senior academics are often very interested in mentoring those who are getting started with things like publication. Mentoring is often sometimes part of their academic duties. It's specified in there along with supervising. So look for apprenticeship or mentoring possibilities so that you can understand the process and that it becomes less intimidating, because the psychology of publishing is an important factor. If we're intimidated by the process, we'll never take that first step. So what that apprenticeship or mentorship does, it allows the senior academic to take the role of navigating the article, dealing with the publishing, maybe it's the editor of a book series or whatever it may be, or the editor of a journal. The senior academic does all of that, and you as the apprentice can see how it works. It may mean that you do the hard, repetitive work. Now, in the humanities, that might be your responsibility to take care of all the referencing. In the sciences, maybe it's dealing with the lab work. But as part of dealing with things like the referencing and the mechanics of the publication, you're learning the process and you're gaining confidence.
Okay, thank you very much. The important thing is we as a novice writer try to get together with a senior professor and engage with them and say, I want to join with your project like that. Okay, in the simply way. And this is the interesting question. I also, feel this kind of feeling. I want to write a book chapter, but I don't know how the way I get this kind of opportunity or vacancy. And I want to join for writing a book chapter. So the question is how to find the opening vacancy or opportunities to write a book chapter that relate to our interests. Okay, this is very important question for us. Yeah, maybe the first opportunity, Dr. John Ryan, could you give your response to the question?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the question. And yeah, it's an important one insofar as we need that vacancy, right? And how do we get going? How do we take that first step? Right? That's one of the questions I posed in the presentation. I think a good way to do that is to look for opportunities at conferences. Now, in the old days when we used to go to in-person conferences, we could look on the bulletin board or look in the area with books and publications, and there might be calls for papers in those places. Nowadays, where everything has become online with conferencing, we can still look for bulletin boards and other opportunities through conferences. And the second place to look is through professional societies or organizations. If your field is education psychology, no doubt there is an international society for education psychology, and you can look oftentimes on the website of that organization and see possibilities or opportunities for publishing. If you become a member of the society, and there often are student membership rates or early career rates as well for joining the society or organization, you can then become part of regular updates and newsletters, and that's a great way to learn about vacancies, as you say, for book chapters of potential interest.
Okay, thank you very much. So there are a lot of things that we have to do, conferences, and then call for papers, website, and member of society. Pak Zainul, for the science and engineering perspective, maybe.
Yeah, thank you very much, Arif. Very much agree with what John mentioned just now. Maybe if I can share some experience last time, my own personal experience. When let's say if you have been looking around, you have find suitable opportunities. So what you can do? So for me, last time what I did was I start my own book project. Okay. Just start your own book project. It shouldn't be a problem. It's very doable. So like what myself and John have shared in our presentation just now, those are the steps that you can take when you want to start a book project. Yeah. But hopefully from our sharing, you can learn or you have some measure now on how to proceed it, starting your own book project. It is not easy, okay, but it's not impossible. It's definitely a difficult thing to do, but it's not impossible. That's a good thing. Yeah, for me, like what John had mentioned just now, and also you can always start your own book project. Okay, so for the one who asking just now, go for it, no problem. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, start your own book project. Okay. Okay, we have a lot of questions here. Some questions already answered by the speakers. For number 6, okay, Bu Husnulali already answered by the speakers. And then Pak Dr. Bambang Eko Susilo from Setar Java, list of recommended publishers and how is the process of submitting and to publishing, already answered as well. And then from Pak Muhammad Fahrul Rahman Alim, ST from Jakarta, for both speakers, especially for Associate Professor Dr. Zainul Akmar Zakaria, is writing a talent or a calling or a desire? Oh, this is a of the box question. Whether by self-taught we can become competent writers, in your opinion, is it important to have a mentor to get us in the world of writing? It is very important. How can we get the guidance of a mentor who is competent in that field? Thank you for your answer. Okay, is writing a talent or a calling or a desire? Okay, Pak Zainul, please give your response.
Okay, for this, I would like also to invite John. Yeah, you can please also chip in some inputs. Yeah, for me, writing is number one. You have to have an interest. Yeah, you have to have that deep down interest that what I'm doing, like us and academics, every year we are given KPI, key performance index for us to achieve. Yeah, but the KPI is only as a guide for me. Yeah, because if you truly work for your KPI, then let's say you have achieved your KPI in April, you will not be doing anything up until December. So for me, writing is about your inclination to continue compiling your work, writing your work, so that you can publish it in one way or another, either in the form of journals, book chapter, and so forth. And that's number one. You have to have your own interest. Number two, is it a talent? For me, it can be an acquired talent. Okay, with interest, deep down interest, you can do so many things. Yeah, for me, to start to become a good writer, the first thing is to write. Just write. Have a draft, table of contents, draft, then discuss with your senior colleagues. Okay, like what John and myself mentioned just now, always align yourself or make yourself available to the senior professors, senior colleagues in your department or in the faculty. So write something. Say, ask them, this is what I've written and I plan to submit as a book chapter. Is it okay? Then you'll see all the comments coming in. Okay, so during this time, you have to be berlapang dada ya, ataupun open-minded with the comments. Okay, don't take it personally. Okay, you must not take any comments personally. There are no senior professors or senior colleagues that would want to comment because of personal agenda towards you. That's not the way. Okay, if they comment for you to do this and this and that, you have the right to ask for elaboration, but don't counter back. Why you ask me to do this? No, it's not the way. Okay, have the courtesy to ask. Okay, never mind. I'll try to do. Then can I come back to you? Trust me, 99.9%, they will say yes. I would like to see the amended version. So that's how you develop your writing skills. So for me, number one, just start writing. Okay, even though you not sure what to draft, writing and then discuss with somebody who you think can guide you to become a better writer. All right, that's my answer. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Zainul. Just start writing right now. Okay, Dr. John Ryan, is writing a talent or calling or a desire for you?
Yes, thank you, Pak Arif. Thank you for the question, Pak Mohammed. And I agree totally with Pak Zainul as well. And I think that academic writing is a particular kind of writing. It's not the writing of a novel or the writing of poetry. However, you still need passion and commitment for academic writing. It's a kind of skill that can be acquired. And the idea is that you acquire that skill to an extent when you do a master's degree or a PhD. I remember some early articles, academic articles that I tried to publish. When I look back on them now, they seem incomprehensible to me. And I wrote the article 10 years or whatever. So I see, oh, wow, I didn't have, my game wasn't up, right? I didn't have the skill just yet. Now, I think it's important to identify academic writers that you admire, where you might read an article and it's crystal clear what that writer is saying. It's a complex idea, but it's crystal clear. How is the writer accomplishing that? So identify a writer you admire as a first step to acquiring your own writing style in academia. The other point I would make is that be as direct and simple and straightforward in your prose. Be careful of overcomplicating your prose, such as having overly long sentences or lots of clauses, right? Comma clause, where the one sentence might go halfway down the page, right? Be careful of overly complicated writing in the humanities. And I think it's true also of the science that I've read, the peer-reviewed science. Direct statements go a long way. The writing can be direct and even simple, but the ideas can be complex. So be careful of overcomplicating your writing. Yeah, so in some, it's a skill you can acquire. You can acquire it through mentoring with someone whose academic writing you admire. And it's also a skill you develop over time with the idea that academic writing conveys complex ideas. So we should make the writing itself as direct and simple as possible. So thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dr. John Ryan. And for question number 1 from Ahmad Dinoto already answered. And also question number 10 from Professor Dr. Reno Sriswari, what is the characteristic of international book chapter, already answered by the speakers. Okay, maybe we don't have any question again. And before I close this session, maybe from Dr. John Ryan and also Pak Dr. Zainul Akmar, 1 minute for closing statement. Okay, please for Dr. John Ryan.
Okay, I'd first like to thank the organizers and the moderators and Eunice as well for the invitation to speak with you. I think that our lives as academics can be enriched by publication and by writing. We often are daunted or fearful or even frightened, intimidated by writing, but it can be a pleasurable, enjoying, and rewarding process. I think keys to writing are, one key at least is collaboration. And so if we're getting started, we might look for ways to collaborate with other more experienced writers in order to gain some track record with academic writing. And in some, I'd like to encourage the Institute at UNES to continue these sorts of seminars. They're very important. A topic that in fact just occurred to me is the review process, how to deal with academic reviews. That's refereeing or reviewing is a particular aspect of academic publication. And so the idea is that we receive blinded so-called feedback on our writing, and that we revise it to more accurately reflect the field and to be careful of mistakes in our work. So, but how we deal with feedback, and in the case of academic writing, referee reports, is very important to the whole process. So thanks again. I look forward to seeing you sometime, hopefully in person soon again.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. John Ryan, for your closing statement. And then closing statement for Pak Zainul Akmar. Please, time is yours.
Thank you very much, Pak Arif, and also John. Yes, it has been a pleasure to be invited for this session. Also, thank you very much for UNES through LPPM, and also a notable mention, my great friend, Dr. Ratna, for the kind invitation, and also the opportunity to share some of the experience that we have with Indonesian researchers. Yeah, we were happy actually to collaborate further. Yeah, in the near future. And also like what John mentioned just now, there are also other aspects that you need to look at, for example, how to handle the reviewing process, yeah? How to keep the role of networking in sustaining your role as an academics. Yeah, so maybe my last take-home point is that always be clear of why you start to write in the first place, why you want to write, because if you're clear about that, all the KPIs, key performance index, or the target, your yearly target will become secondary to you, because now you're writing because you know why you're writing. Okay, maybe that's my last segment is message from UTM's Vice Chancellor, Professor Datuk Dr. Ahmad Fauzi Ismail, to Pak Rector, Professor Fatur. He sent his regards and say thanks, but thank you very much to have this kind of session. And he is looking forward to have more engaging sessions such as this. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Zainul Akmar and also Dr. John Ryan. As a closing statement before I end this meeting, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So just start writing right now. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, finally we come to the end of the webinar session. I would like to say thanks again for all the presenters for their informative and interesting talk, and also to audience for your participation. Hopefully, the presentations will be beneficial for everybody. Please give applause to the speakers by pressing the reaction. Okay. Okay, thank you for your attention. Good afternoon and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Saya kembalikan ke Mbak Intan.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Well, thank you, Mr. Arif, for set us moderated well today. I will give applause to all of the speakers and also the committee. And thank you once again to our rector who joined this webinar until the end. And thank you for the speakers, Mr. Associate Professor Dr. Zainul Akmar Zakaria and also Dr. John Ryan. Thank you for very inspiring presentation. I hope that one day we can meet again, not only virtually, maybe to give directly the training for our lecturers. That's a very nice event, I think. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the discussion today. And don't forget to fill the attendance link. So the e-certificate and also the presentation will be given through your email. So make sure that you write the email correctly. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all for today. Thank you for joining us. See you on the next webinar settings. Stay healthy and stay safe, everybody. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. See you again.